All right, good evening, everybody. It is April the 8th. It is 5:30 p.m. This is the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen pre-agenda meeting for the month of April. We have all of our board members in attendance. If Mayor Pro Tem would give our invocation, I would appreciate it.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, this is an exciting time to be here in our town. Thank you for being with us through all this transition and through all the exciting things that are occurring. We feel your presence. We need your presence. And may you continue to guide us, and may we continue to serve you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute. All right. We have a couple of items to cover tonight. One of those is setting our agenda items for next Tuesday's meeting. But before we get to that, the board got to take a tour of our new town hall and police department construction project, and things are moving swimmingly well, I think. And so we have Keith Wells, our architect, with us tonight, and he is going to review some options for our dais for the new town hall in our public meeting space. So Keith, good to have you with us here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Turn it over to you.
All right. So originally we started off with, well, I'll go all the way back to the beginning. The original plan for the building 3-4 years ago was to bring the dais that you're currently sitting at over to the new space. And that remained that way for quite a while until it was decided that maybe that wasn't the best option, and we weren't quite sure why that decision was made first time. So we then started looking at new layouts. They came in 4 different options, which we kind of quickly ran through the administration to see what made the most sense. Some of the feedback that I've heard over the years at the town meetings and from citizens is, as the current dais has board members facing each other almost a little more than they face the public, which is good for when you're having a conversation, but sometimes leaves them feeling like they're not engaged in the conversation. So what we looked at was what happens when we put all of the board members along a back wall. What happens when we actually moved the mayor off to one side, so he was sort of overseeing a panel, which was kind of an odd option. But in the end, we came up with what I think was the right option, which was this gentle curve, which helps mirror the look of the lobby, but also makes it so that the board members can still see each other and still talk to each other, but they're much more facing forward and engaging the citizens in a positive way. There's plenty of elbow space in the new layout. We started with, if you go by standard space planning, a person takes up about 30 inches. We kind of pumped that up to about 3.5 feet, so that there's space for you to have the many things that you're reviewing in front of you. And then coming along each side is the different is enough space for the different support staff, such as the town manager, finance, or legal, depending upon the secretary. I'm sorry, I don't. What is
Well, so we would likely have the town clerk, the town attorney, and the town manager.
Yes.
On the sides.
Apologies for the wrong name. So we kind of came up with this option. It's a fairly, we wanted something that was subtle and simple, not overly gaudy. So just, we're working with, we want something very nice that matches the room, but also matches the budget. And want to kind of present, and this is really just an initial sketch option. This shouldn't be seen as 100% we need to do it this way. This is just saying, okay, here's a great place for the discussion to start. That includes finishes, the layout, whatever you might need. We just have some clearances in the room. We want to keep 3 feet from every wall and 3 feet along the back to make sure that there's enough space for people to get through. Also ADA clearance, so that you know, there's no discrimination against people who may get injured or may have different levels of ability. So that's generally exactly what we've got here up on the board. And I think this was the one that both Peter and the mayor decided was the one to kind of pursue a little bit further and flesh out a little bit more. Are there
I'll
any?
stop there.
Yes.
The option with the mayor on the side, I definitely did not like because I enjoy being up here with you
Yeah.
folks. So
It
it was very odd.
I like to throw one wild card in there just to see what's, what happens. Because
That was the wild card
you don't
for
want to
sure.
stay too much inside the boat. You got to throw one way out there. So, yeah.
I don't know. The board might have preferred that.
Just don't put him
I was
up on the
contained.
pulpit in the corner.
I started
Yeah.
like, can we just eliminate them altogether?
But it's gonna break the ties.
Hadn't had that case yet, so don't worry about it.
So looking at the basic construction, that's what this is all about. And you'll see some of the materials called out, but again, these are just sketches. What it's showing you is essentially that it is all clear underneath. There's not a bunch of legs for you to bang your knees against. It's sort of, we use a steel support system to basically make a floating table that goes all along that arc, and then kind of supports itself on the ends. If you want to go to the next one. And so, the words are great, but I think the visuals kind of speak for themselves. This is an overall view. I will say I have a very limited selection of people, so please don't read anything into who I may or may not have put in any particular position. There's only so many. And you can begin to see how it starts to fill the room, the finishes of the room, as well as how much space is available to people like myself who come and have to speak before the board about various issues. So we want them to be close enough to have a clear conversation, while at the same time not being right on top of the board, so they have the space they need to kind of deliberate, ask questions, and engage with the different issues. And so this would be the view from the back of the room, not exactly the back of the room, but about halfway back. One of the features we've been speaking about with virtual sound are these screens that you see up here. And basically, if we're having a presentation, you can see some of you get to face the screen, other people have to face in two different directions at the same time. We don't want that. It's not ideal. So the idea is that the two screens that are closest to us are for the back of the room to be able to see the presentation. The ones directly behind them actually face the Board of Aldermen. So you will face forward, and to the two corners, you will see the presentation. So you'll be able to engage with the question without doing this number all the time, trying to figure out what we're talking about.
You're really gonna miss doing that, I think.
Yes.
Can we change
He's
it?
got vines in the back of his head. Are you kidding me?
I'm thinking about the no. And then the final set back by is really for the people who sit up close, because in the end those front television screens line up with about the front row of seating. So obviously those people in the first 4 or 5 rows wouldn't be doing this, staring straight up at a screen. So we're going to give them a set that sits above, behind the board members, so they'll be able to see the presentation as it's happening. You can see the wood finishes there. That's a really nice smoked oak laminate panel finish that we are using throughout the sort of common areas. It's the sort of unifying element. Kind of adds a nice level of finish with the carpets. Our excellent interior and furnishings, Sherry Mason Brown, and reviewed this with us and kind of helped with the colors a little bit, make it a little bit warmer. So we think it's going to be a really great space to be in. And then you can kind of get a close-up view of this. Is more what it's like to actually be next to or seated at the dais. And then finally, more your view, as well as, this is the first view you guys are getting of what the whole space is going to look like, including back where we talked about the glassy entrance from the lobby into the boardroom. You can almost not see it because it really is just a glass wall with a door set in it. And then the way that wood trim kind of wraps around, connecting the lobby space to the boardroom, really making them feel like they've joined together. And that is that's essentially the conversation starter. That's my icebreaker.
So talk a little bit more about the material.
Mm-hmm. So right now we're calling out laminate for it.
For all of it, including the tabletop.
It is, yes, and it's one of those products that sometimes gets a bad name, but can also be extremely handy in that it can fill very large areas without, it's cost effective, and you get the monolithic look of certain things without a lot easier than you would with solid wood. That's a very difficult. There's a reason why the dais you're sitting at right now is what we do, panel and rail style construction, because trees don't grow 4 feet wide, and if they do, they're super expensive. And but now that isn't to say, I think the colors, we start with the layout, then get into the colors and material. Upgrading to a full wood countertop because it's going to wear and tear better over the years is definitely a very good option. One of the next steps we actually take this to after this meeting, with your feedback, we're actually going to put this in front of a mill worker who might build it and get price back and get feedback on pricing. Because really what you want to do is you want to bring together layout, finishes, and the pricing. If you got a little bit of extra, or oh my goodness, I didn't know it was even going to be half of that, we can design the most amazing thing in the world, but it's also, we have to make it fit the town's needs and the town's budget.
Right.
So would there be a table or a position other than just the one podium for the town manager and the town clerk, or?
They would sit on the side.
Yep, they're actually the lower, and this is a subtle part of the design, but if you can see the 2 flanking seating positions, there's 2 against the far wall and 2 against the near wall. Those are for staff, and they have a slightly lower edge to them, which kind of sets up a hierarchy when you walk in. People generally won't realize it, but they will know who they're talking to based upon these subtle visual cues. It also provides a little bit more protection for what you happen to be looking at, because it creates a nice little 4-inch wall for you to put your important papers behind. And then hopefully, depending on how the furnishings go, the actual lectern will be a piece of furniture, and then I could imagine there actually being a table next to it for a person who's presenting to either have a colleague or set down presentation materials.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah. Not about furniture, but it's about the floor. You say that's carpet down on the floor, right?
Carpet tiles, yes.
Carpet tile. So it's not carpet, basically. I mean,
Well, so the difference between carpet and carpet tile, so floor to wall carpet,
yeah,
we lay it down in huge chunks.
right.
In most commercial auditorium spaces, things like this, you want that feel of carpet.
Right.
But they come in different sizes. I think the ones we were looking at are 18 inches by 36.
That's fine. Because I've seen this type of carpet. It looks like carpet to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm worried about the rollers on the chairs underneath and how long they're gonna last, that
This
looks
stuff,
like it'd be easy to
this stuff
tear up.
wears. They did some of it in the media center over at the high school, Steve.
Yeah,
It's high wear,
yeah,
and it's thin, right? And so
Yeah.
it's not like plush carpet.
okay.
Yeah.
And it wears well over time. But the nice thing is, if you ever need to take a square up and
Yeah.
replace it, whether something gets stained or something like that, you can do that.
That's
Yep.
good.
And it's actually a good idea when they put this in to go ahead and request a couple of boxes. There's a few materials that you're going to want to request a couple of boxes, put them in storage. Because even if they happen to be making the same pattern 7 years later,
Yeah.
it's not going to look the same. It's going to have a
Sure.
different color.
Yep.
The manufacturers are always messing with stuff, so it's a good common practice to. But that is exactly why we pick carpet tile, is
Okay.
because a high wear area right underneath the podium
Easy
can be
to clean,
replaced
too, as well.
without being stuck with
Yeah.
totally
But
reflowing.
Steve, if you have a strong affinity to this carpet in here, we can probably take it up and move it over there.
Yeah, I think I'll pass. But I was concerned since we got dealing with the public and moving chairs.
Yep.
everything else.
sure.
That's, you just certainly don't wanna have something torn
Just
after
like
the first
glue,
year.
it's glued down.
It is put down with an adhesive, yeah.
Adhesive?
Okay,
It's
A lot
not,
of them actually have an adhesive backing on them now.
Yeah.
okay. That's
I'm not sure what we're using though.
Very good.
I think you probably would have most commonly seen it in either airports or hotel spaces. It's a very distinct.
Yeah.
It looks like carpet, but it's a little bit, because it's thinner, it's a little bit
And what's the
Harder.
price difference between this and LVT?
roughly comparable. There, yeah.
So with like Steve was talking about the movement of chairs and people coming in and just kicking back on their chair, sliding and whatnot, tends to grab on a carpet type surface as opposed to a LVT type surface. And
Does I'd say my 2 points on the comparison between those two finishes would be LVT can gouge easier on, especially in this type of situation. The other is acoustic. If this was LVT in this room, we would have a lot harder time hearing each
It's a
other
lot
because we
louder.
get so much reverberation. In a room this size, I think we definitely wanted to incorporate that soft surface to help the acoustics.
I'll say Concord built a new city hall about 5 years ago, 76,000 square feet, and that was the type of flooring in the majority of the building. That didn't. There were some other places that had hard tiles, lobby areas and such, but all of the meeting spaces had that kind of flooring, and it seemed to perform very well.
Yeah, conference centers use that a whole lot.
so are the legs of the chairs, are they gonna have like little coasters on them? Or?
All of the chairs, I believe, have rollers on them. Now
No,
except for
not for the dais. I'm talking about for
They're just
the
regular,
audience.
just regular chairs.
No, the dais have rollers, but the chairs.
You're talking about it, yeah, out in the,
Yeah.
That's actually-
it's gonna be a lot different with if they're able to slide on a carpeted surface as opposed to gouging into it. You're talking about gouging. I can see if it's a square chair like the ones that I'm seeing here, those will dig more into.
yeah, these are a little different based on, if I remember correctly with what we picked out. They actually, I mean, they do have not a big pad necessarily, but it's not like these where there is,
It has an actual foot on it.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Can I go a step further besides this room here? What kind of flooring finishes in the rest of the hall?
So the majority of the office spaces throughout the police department and the administration is going to be LVT. It's a little bit more conducive to an office environment while also having the replaceability. And then all of the support spaces and what do you call it? The corridors are all the existing concrete. We're going to grind it down about,
So that-
a 1/16 of an inch and put a good not a polish.
See,
I wanted a good seal on it. We didn't want to polish it. It'll basically be, I don't know how to say it. It actually will feel a lot like the fabric on these tables right now. Biggest reason being, if we polish the concrete and a police officer comes in after stepping in this nice Carolina mud, it's a big problem. So we didn't want something high gloss, but we did want to put a better finish on that concrete because it needs it.
And then the lobby area,
Lobby area is different.
Yeah.
isn't it?
The lobby area is different. So really need to have a sample of this. There will be time to actually review the sample.
Yeah.
We're doing a stamped concrete. So what they're doing is they're pouring down a very thin layer of concrete and they're coming through with a wood stamp. And what it does is it looks like the wood butcher block flooring that's at the Transportation Museum.
Yeah.
And then they put a color on it as well.
Yeah.
I assume they seal on top of the color.
Yeah,
That's
there's a whole series of processes, but it at least has some grip to it because it has actual texture. It's not just one gigantic, very hard slip and slide.
So-
Will the mirror ball go between the poles or will it hang over Jonathan's seat?
that is funny because I just had a conversation with Bob as I was showing him through, telling him that column is going to kind of get in the way, unfortunately, of folks' view. But we decided it would be okay as long as Sam didn't start trying to dance on it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, the three columns were, the great thing about that building is the way that it was built was for large, clear spans, but they also really pushed the limits of how far you can go between columns. So
Mm.
to ask to remove that would have been to change an 8-inch deep beam to about a 48-inch deep beam. I mean, it would have gotten absolutely insane. So yeah,
We'll live with it.
yeah.
So on the dais,
Mhm.
it's the board, what do you think about the concept, the layout? I think is the key that do you like the concept? You think that works for,
I like
for our needs?
I think it looks great.
Now, is it modular? I mean, can you put, or is it all one piece?
It is one big piece. At least until I talk to the person who actually has to build it, and they might say otherwise. But right now, it is just designed as one large. You know, they'll carry it in with a dozen men, and it won't move again. It is not attached to the floor, though. It is set in place, so it's not permanent.
And as a reminder, Keith, I don't know if you mentioned it on our tour. I think I mentioned it to somebody. Part of the thing with one of the change orders we'll be reviewing includes electrical boxes in the floor to be able to support that dais, as well as then out in the main seating area, because with that flex space, we've selected tables that are on casters, and the tables will also fold down so they can store, but they'll have built-in power to them, and they connect, but in order to have that power, you have to have somewhere in the floor to be able to plug them in.
Correct.
So what they'll do with that then is come and cut out concrete to actually run the conduit and the electrical line and put those boxes in.
And that would include the ability for the microphones and the data connections as well.
Right.
As needed for AV.
And that's one thing that'll be part of the later discussion once we sort of get through the layout, is start talking about what and how you would like to be able to connect into the dais. You know, do we have grommets? Because we'll need to run power throughout and data throughout, and how does that hook in, and you know, how many per person. So it's all kind of details to be worked up as we move forward.
Somebody will be working all these controls, so basically, is that right?
For the AV system,
Yeah, and everything, yeah. the
So that-
sound
yeah.
system and everything, yeah.
they will be, if I remember correct, there's a spot at the back of the hall,
So,
back at the back of the room near the snack
okay,
area, where the controller will be.
okay. So,
Mm.
I guess the podium will be, it's not gonna be mounted, you can shift that and move that, right?
Yeah, it's an actual piece of
And
furniture.
there'll be speakers
Purchased.
there for that, as far as that goes.
Well, personally, I like it. I like the layout. I think it's good. There were some options we looked at that, were straight across the front, and I think this curve really helps where we can see each other and have good dialogue. I know Keith mentioned about colors and things like that. Any thoughts on what you see with the rendering? I mean, I kind of like the white in that it keeps things bright and fresh and new feeling in there.
You don't think it'll get dirty or anything like that?
Well, if it's the laminate,
It cleans
it's
real.
very easy to clean.
Yep.
Yeah. The only thing, Keith, that I would say is it is a lot of white that's not really broken up, because folks the public's not going to be able to actually see the color on the tabletops.
Correct.
I'm almost wondering if there's a way to do some type of laminate wood colored band on the top that matches the tabletop.
We go one more, number 4. Thank you. So that was a concern, and actually it started off a different color, but then the idea was that wood that you're missing from the top is on the back wall. So as a composition,
Yeah,
you
that's true.
sort of are getting the wood and white mix. Now, it is fairly simple, fairly clean. It can be a little bit more complex, and that might be a discussion that we have with the mill worker, as far as, they'll have good options as far as what's commonly done, sometimes when you can almost design it so much that it gets hard for them to build, and then the
Right.
cost goes through the roof.
Yep.
So which is why we want to start with these but this is very much all open for discussion, but we can definitely pull some of the wood together, or maybe just it needs, maybe the town logo
I was going to
placed upon
suggest
it,
that. Yep.
or just Town of Spencer, or there are many things that we can add to it that'll help make it a lot less of a big chunk of white blankness.
I think that'd be great, put the logo up front.
Yeah, or maybe the logo goes on the back wall, and then each person's name is in front of them on the white. Town of Spencer is written across the middle, or something. There's many different options, but there's definitely, it's a good framework.
The wood on the back wall match the doors.
It does. Yeah, it is all the wood on the interior is actually the plastic laminate. It's for cleanability, durability, and also for uniformity. It's the one product I can use that goes on walls, doors, kind of a little bit everywhere, because it's really hard to match real wood, fake wood, ceramic wood. Everybody's got a wood texture they're trying to sell nowadays, but trying to get them to look good together is a whole other battle.
All right. Any other questions?
The lighting in the ceiling here, is that, those fluorescent?
They, I remember if they're fluorescent
They're
bulbs or
LED,
not.
aren't they?
They're,
E
I think they're
I
LED.
think they're LED.
They're also, if you can imagine the ones above your head here, they are 6 inches wide rather than 2 feet. So they are a quarter of the width. They're kind of like these little blades of light rather than these large glowing things. It's just a slightly higher level of finish. And then the ceiling will be acoustical ceiling tile, but not like this. Nicer.
Oh,
Originally, the design was to have wood ceilings, but that came in at about $100,000, so that quickly met its end. But all right,
That'd be $500,000 now.
That's right.
if you can get it.
All right. So are we in general agreement that this is the appropriate concept to move forward with? All right.
I was kind of wanting some fuchsia and lime green, but
Well, that can still
I'll
be
go.
done. We haven't talked colors
I'll
yet.
go along.
If you leave, out of curiosity, how long, what's the length on that device? Does it allow for social distancing if you still have to have safety?
No. So I mean, it is 21 feet. Essentially, everybody's got space for, about a person and a half next to them. So if we were social distancing, the occupancy would drop by half. So the probably the entire board would take up the dais and the 2 wings,
That's what I was thinking.
and then the staff would move out kind of like they are right now, until such time. But so it's not, although I mean, yeah, you guys wouldn't, I don't think you would want to meet at this distance all the time
Right.
as a plan.
Do I
Hopefully
have
just in the middle
sit
of
next to
major
him?
pandemics.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good.
All right.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Looks good.
And I know we're going to go through the agenda, but do we want to go ahead and let Keith
And
talk about the change order?
yeah,
Discussion.
that's effectively one of the first items of major. If you want to jump to that point right now, we can do that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That will be, we'll let him, and then we'll circle back to the minutes.
Okay.
So
And-
we're moving to item 8.
And Mayor and members of Board of Aldermen, I will introduce this and happy to have Keith Wales with us this evening in case there's any questions or additional information he can provide. But this is the first change order you have seen for this project brought before you. You'll note it's change order number 2. Change order number 1 is what you authorized at the part of the when we approved the contract to begin with. Change order number 1 at that point was established that was going to take care of the value engineering and other changes that happened between bidding and when the contract was executed. So that's why this is change order number 2. And it basically accomplishes 4 things. Two of the items are to replace existing restroom plumbing and fixtures in the rear of the structure that were supposed to remain, but the demolition that occurred a couple of years ago wound up not allowing that. And this is kind of a Spartanly outfitted restroom that would be suitable for somebody who is in custody. If they needed to use a restroom facility when they're in the rear of the building, they'd be able to do that. If they're in custody of the police. So that's part of it. The next part is hardware and door changes to accommodate electrified building access system. We'll have a card reader system of sort to move through the building for those who have access. And that required some hardware changes on the doors. We also removed a few unnecessary doors, and as a whole, the door and hardware changes result in a credit on this change order. We also, you heard a little bit about the roof related to the firewall and the steel. That steel support is needing a change order to accommodate it. It wasn't part of the original plan, but as things got reconfigured, it became necessary.
Yep.
And then we talked a little bit about the floor boxes to accommodate the AV needs in the boardroom and conference rooms, so that we can use the technology that we need to as we're conducting the business of the town. And so as a whole, this is a change order that would result in an increase of about $15,000 to the contract. And if approved, we would have $105,269.10 remaining in the contingency for the project.
So any questions on that?
Mr. Wills, can you explain item number 1? Because I'm a plumber and I still don't understand.
So, when we started the project, we had an existing bathroom at the rear of the building, and we designated it, and it actually had fixtures. And on the plans, we'd gone through, and it says basically demolish everything except for this one room. The demolition that happened, I don't remember. It was fall of 2020 or spring of 2020.
I think it was 2019.
2019,
What I've seen
okay.
on some of the papers.
I have photo documentation that it was there, and then in the time that it was being bid, which was the time that this other demolition happened, they did what demolition contractors do. They took out everything to the point where they actually clipped the water supply right back flush with the wall. They just took a Sawzall and went and just sawed it. I mean, you know, what you would expect of a demolition contractor. The other side of it was that because the services are never turned on in the room, we knew that we had the fixtures, but it turned out the plumbing was actually bad servicing them. So had we had the fixtures, we wouldn't have to pay for new fixtures. We would still have to replumb them because the lines were actually run up into the concrete ceiling, because that ceiling above that area is concrete, and clipped at some unknown location, making it really difficult, or basically impossible, to connect to them. So what this includes is the 2 fixtures, the replumbing them, including their venting and wasting, and then putting in the FRP wall, because basically what's happening is we can't go through that concrete block wall, so we have to build out a small 2x4 wall to run the new services in. This is what we refer to as found conditions on the construction site. It's really the large part of the contingencies. Building a new building, this is usually a large boulder in the ground that you weren't expecting that just happens, or some soft dirt. In this case, we have good dirt, and we're not digging so we don't find boulders, but we do have other things that get found as construction commences, and this is one of the first ones the plumber picked up. And so we kind of went back and forth. Each one of these change orders has been negotiated about twice over the course of a month. Contractor comes with a problem, I suggest a solution, they tell me how much it's going to be, and then I fight them a little bit on the price and see where there's efficiencies to be gained, different ideas, different approaches, and then we kind of arrive at the most economical solution. And that's,
And then you send it to the town manager who tells you to go back and
yes.
do it again.
I was gonna leave that part out, but yes, absolutely.
That's right.
So there's a difference, in what is quoted and what is on the change order itself. Is that, a set percentage?
So so the contractor puts 20% on the entire price of the job, and that includes all change orders. So there's the quote from the different suppliers. I will say this, 20% is the standard operating procedure for any bid, any job like this. Most contractors do not stick to that on change orders at all. I think our contractors being very straightforward with us by sticking to a flat percentage instead of, you know, in this market, you could see 50 or 60% markup just for the problems of having to deal with the change order. So I don't have any problem with what he's proposing, and he's stuck really tight to that 20%. So
Just curious.
no, absolutely, but yeah.
So Keith, I had a question with the hardware changes. Had we not originally planned for the RFID system?
So we had a lump sum for the actual security system. We had electrified hardware in there. What has happened is we've eliminated some doors, we've changed some doors, we've added electrified hardware to other doors. I think originally most of this was credits, but the front door originally was supposed to be just key locked to the lobby. And it was decided that really didn't make a lot of sense, and that it was worth the cost. And one electrified hardware set is about $3,000, which wiped out the rest of the credits. So that's kind of how we arrived at this. But it's just a fine tuning. And as we brought the security consultant on board, they've also gone through the hardware set and made sure what we've called for matches what we actually need. And actually, we were very close on most of the doors. There's just a few here and there that little changes. Some of the things you may have noticed, some really terrible looking doors over there, but if you look closely, the frames are good. So I had them keep the frames but replace the doors. That's a little bit of savings there. Things like that.
Which with majority of our staff going to be parking in the front of the building, it seemed like a lot better option for us to use the card access for that front door, for them to gain access before we're open and such.
Fewer
Rather than
keys, the better.
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay. So that being the case, is this an item that we want to act on alone next Tuesday, or as a standalone item, or do we want to add it to the consent agenda?
Yeah, I think we can discuss it, the horse and I will, just keep it.
Okay.
My opinion.
So, the rest of the board think?
Consent, I guess. Why not? I mean, how much more is there to discuss about this? It is what it is. Let's just hope they don't have any more change orders.
All right, and
But-
again, we have, after this, 105,000 remaining in contingency,
Yes.
correct? And right now, we're roughly 3.5 months into construction. So, my take on it, we're doing pretty well.
I would say, especially one thing to consider is the majority of change orders, and especially costly change orders, come in the beginning of the construction. I mean, once we get into drywall and paint, they're not going to be coming back and saying, "Oh, we need an extra coat of paint. You guys need." But these big found items are going to be they're going to pop up soon, and that's probably the first 2, 3, 4 months are when the majority of the stuff will happen, and then after that it'll go quiet. And I think
The biggest next risk is when the roof comes off.
yeah, well,
Yes.
I'm all for short meetings, and I think it's very important, and I don't know how our agenda is for Tuesday night, but we got a lot of people that listen to us, and I really think they need to know what we're doing. I mean, if we just tell them real quickly, this is what we're doing. I think it'd be better to be upfront with people and say, hey, this is costing us 15,000.
Mhm.
At least we're telling them.
Right.
Instead of saying, just passing it on through. I mean, if we can make a short presentation and show them what we're doing, I think for the board, ourselves, it help us to explain what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Can you make it short, Keith, because you don't do anything short? Not that I've seen
Oh,
it.
I appreciate that. That's what I do.
4 years in, I didn't see nothing short yet, and we're still, I mean, can you do it?
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
and I don't
You
know
got
that,
3 minutes.
I don't
Well, and I
know
was
that,
gonna say, I mean, based
Yeah,
on what
but
we've heard
put
tonight,
time
Peter
with it.
can probably
Like a
run
gun
through it
show.
quickly
Yeah.
for us.
We'll put
I,
a timer up here running.
Come on, Chuck.
And more for
Time is up.
the board's education, but I just want to let you know, talking with the USDA about the contingency, the way they finance things is they are last money in, so any money that isn't spent in contingency is just money that they don't loan the town. So, you know, it's not like you're not coming out of pocket for these, they just get rolled into the 30-year.
Yeah, it's already
That's your-
planned for.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
You mind coming to the
I could probably I could find out if I can either zoom in or come down, either one.
Okay. I think it'd be better for everyone. This is very important.
No, I agree.
So, how many change orders do we have tonight? 6?
Just that one.
What's this,
They're all compiled.
They're
into
all
one.
one.
Mhm.
What we just talked about is one. They're all, so
Just broke it
this
down into
change order,
different
there's 6
items.
different changes in that
Yeah.
change order. We just walked through each of those.
That's what each of the materials are.
So all of those 6 changes sum up to a total net addition of $15,248. Okay.
All right.
So
There-
we'll plan to give a short presentation.
Reader's Digest
Tuesday.
version.
Yep. And Keith, I would say there's no reason to
No.
have to make the trip down.
Okay.
So you can work it out with Peter. You
I
can
will.
just zoom in and
Yep.
do it that way.
It'll definitely give, I'm giving you guys the more nuanced view, but I don't think the public necessarily wants or needs, the history of construction billing. That's-
Keith, just the summary of the
Yeah.
summary of the changes and the costs.
yeah.
Yeah.
And why they needed to be done.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, Keith, I think that's it
All right.
on the building. So I think you're free to go whenever
Thank
you'd
you
like.
all for
Thank
having
you.
me down. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I am
Thank
super
you.
excited to see it starting to come together, and I can't wait for the next phase, which is going to really the outside of the building is going to start to really take form too. So we're excited. Thank you all.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's circle back up to recognitions. Are there any recognitions that we need to make? Peter, I know Tammy is staying on to kind of help Stacy do some training there. What does that time frame look like?
it's kind of she's being very flexible with us. We don't have a hard date yet as to, she's been coming about a day a week, and she's still continuing to help us with some records retention, getting rid of things we don't need. And so I don't know that, I think it's feasible that we're still going to be having a relationship with Tammy for, the next month or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe next month would be a good time to recognize her.
I think that would be good.
Okay. So we'll plan that for next month then. Any other recognitions that we need to make? All right. If you think of any between now and Tuesday, let me know. Okay. All right. The other item will be approval of the minutes for pre-agenda and regular meeting from March the 4th and March the 9th. So hopefully we've had a chance to look at those. Are there any changes that need to be made? And if not, do you want to put that on the consent agenda?
Yep.
Yes, Peter.
Mayor, I would mention in terms of number 4, adjustments and adoption of agenda.
Yes, thank you.
There is an attachment in your binder, number 12, that we received from the EDC after we had already printed this agenda, and we would recommend that you add to the agenda an item to consider the changes to the bylaws of the Rowan EDC as they have provided to us.
Yeah, we'll have to adopt those bylaws. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those.
That's gonna be item what?
Well, we haven't set that yet, and that's the
Oh.
question. Do we want to set that as an agenda item, or do you want to add it as a consent agenda item?
Oh, I haven't seen them. Do we have them?
Yeah, they're in your binder.
Oh, they're in there?
But since you haven't had a chance to see them, let's hold that.
Oh, yeah, I see it in the back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
What is our financial commitment? Is that, it's part of our budget?
It is. Is it 500 a year? I think
It may
that's-
be even a little less than that.
Yeah.
I believe they sent something recently. If you give me a moment, I think I might find it and could tell you the specific number, but they calculate it, I believe, based on population. And
We're talking about EDP bylaws.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know when you want to discuss. I just saw some discrepancy. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I have here in front of me because it looked like I had a double printing of something, but in one section it talked about expanding the board to up to 5 persons, and then in another area it says when it says the board of directors in the back, that they have 7, 9, 10, 14, no, more than that. Can you just look at the where it says the board of directors on Article 5 on the?
Yeah, so what you've got, Bob, the first part of that is a summary of all the changes. So it's saying what changes are being made, and then in starting where it says page 1 with Article 1, that's the actual new updated version.
This one with print.
Right, I believe, yeah.
Okay, and that goes for 4.
So you're talking about
to-
page 3, Article 5. So if you look at the Article 5,
Article 5, Section 1.
expand the board by up to 5 persons to allow for representation from funding partners other than governmental units.
Right. So what was it before? Do we know? So keeping that in mind, if you go to like the last 3 pages, the 3rd page from the end, when it talks about Article 5 Board of Directors, is that what's being amended?
I think part of that is to make the board a little bit more concise, and also allow for some outside private interests who are supporting now the EDC, to allow them to have some representation. Because to begin with, I think it was the county commissioners appointed 7 people, the city council of Salisbury had 2, and then each municipality had 1 member.
So add those up, and what do you get?
7,
I-
9.
my understanding is there is currently the 7, or at least the 1 member appointed to represent. That, I believe that's currently in place. And so I think the new part is this up to 5 members appointed
that are not part of a governmental unit, that would be private or nonprofit
Um,
funders. And so what it's allowing is members that are part of the EDC that are not just governmental units, county and cities and towns, that then they would have representation of up to 5 people on their board.
Okay, so the board as it exists right now is 15 members. But if you add one member for each of the municipalities in Rowan County, of which there are 10 municipalities, correct?
Yeah, my understanding, Bob, is right now it's 10 members. And what that item D, they didn't clearly show it, but if you look, they're saying providing the board to nominate and elect 5 members to its body allows EDC to broaden and diversify its membership. So I take that to be that item D is an additional 5 members that they're
Well,
adding.
Okay.
It could be a typo.
Okay, here's the board members right now.
Mhm.
Y'all count. Then Denise Hallett, she's the chair. Derry Caldwell, vice chair. Tim Proper, treasurer. Dan Peters, secretary. Gary Blaybarn, Luke Fisher, Brett Dorton. And then Greg Anderson, Nicole Holmes, Matagnira, and Kristen Dillard.
That's 11.
Those are
So
the
11.
board members.
That's 11.
Okay, and then they have staff. Who are, and then,
Well, don't count staff. I'm just talking about the board of,
Yeah,
board
so-
of
I
directors.
think-
So Bob, it looks like there is a typo. It
Yeah,
says
I think
comprised
it's a
of
typo
10. I think
because
they just
after
didn't update
every
it.
number is spelled out, it's got it in parentheses.
Yeah, I think they just forgot to
think it's
update
just-
it to 15.
Yeah.
all right, but then they consider the people, like the representatives from the city as guests, so we're not actually board members. The guests present were Barbara Mallett, Mayor V. Spencer, David Post, Salisbury City Council, Elaine Spalding, Rowan County Chamber of Commerce President, Patricia Sledge, Spencer Board of Aldermen, Chris Cranford, Mayor Pro Tem of Town of Rockwell, and Greg Eds, Chairman, Rowan County Commissioners. This was at the meeting of March the 11th.
Do you think by Tuesday we can get a clarification on that? Because I still don't see what real number they're trying to get to.
Right. It looks to be 15, but they need to clarify it. Pat, can you reach out?
I can.
Bob, was there anything else?
Hold on, let me see.
If there's anything, let's go ahead and ask any clarification we need. So we'll, this will not be a consent agenda item. Let's put it as,
I had to leave that meeting earlier this afternoon.
Yeah.
To come to the walkthrough. There was a discussion on the end of the agenda for today, about a bylaws update.
okay,
And I'm sorry, I don't know what that was.
okay. So let's do this. If you can look through it, if you have any concerns or questions that need clarification beyond the one we've noted, if you will send that to Pat by the end of day tomorrow, so that she can get clarification, hopefully on Monday, so that we have that by Tuesday. Okay? Where do you want to put this in the agenda? You want to do it right after the town manager report?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it matters where.
Well, insert it.
Yeah. Let's do that. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Peter. Anything on the minutes? Are you good with putting those on the consent agenda? Shaking heads, yes. Okay. All right. Item 9 is our negotiated sale of surplus awnings for use in the central business district.
Mayor and members of the board, Joe Morris is with us via Zoom and can summarize this evening for you.
Hey, Joe, what do you know?
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can you
Yep.
hear us?
Yes, you can. I can. And so there's a memorandum in the agenda packet related to this. Back in March, the board approved a resolution that was consistent with the general statute that allows the town to sell by negotiated sale items of less than $30,000 in value. And as the memorandum explains, we submitted written letters to all the downtown property owners, and we made a publication in the Salisbury Post, and we received 5 applications for approximately 178 feet of awnings that the town has as surplus. One of the conditions of the resolution, the policies that were set by the town, was a first come, first served basis. And so in this particular case, it will work out where 3 of the 5 applicants will be able to be fully accommodated in their request. And the addresses are included in the memo of 404 South Salisbury Avenue, 111 5th Street, and 518 South Salisbury Avenue. Those are 3 established properties in the downtown business district. And so the recommendation from staff is to ask the Board of Aldermen to approve the grants that approve the staff recommendation, and to allow the town manager to proceed with the negotiated sale of the awnings at $1 per linear foot. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I'll also be prepared to be present on Tuesday if you need me to. And just please let me know if I can help in any way.
All right, any questions for Mr. Morris?
Did you sell all of them?
Yeah.
Did you sell all of them, Joe?
Yeah, that's if we had another 100 feet or so, we would have been able to accommodate all the applicants. But we are
Okay.
we're in a position of being able to help 3 businesses, and it will completely exhaust our inventory of surplus awnings.
Okay.
Are any of these replacing current awnings that are there?
You want you to say again, louder?
So
My question was, are these replacing any existing awnings on those buildings?
They are replacing some damaged awnings.
Okay.
So just to add to that, the 404 South Salisbury Avenue is the property that the Nances have purchased at Park Plaza. And it's essentially taking, awnings off of the town-owned property and allowing them to be moved down. She does not have awnings now.
Right.
The 111 5th Street is the Roger Dogs building, and there is an awning frame there, but there's not any canvas on it. And this will allow the Penixes to actually complete a full awning set across one of the larger buildings in our downtown. It will help them with their sidewalk dining, and it's just going to be a nice addition. And then the third one is the Pinocchio's building, and they have a curved awning, and this would be changing it out to that more angular frame system. Now, all of these will be required to seek a certificate of appropriateness from the Spencer Historic Preservation Commission. And so we're sort of, it's sort of incremental. I don't anticipate that there will be any issues with the issuance of the certificates of appropriateness. But once the decision is made on Tuesday, we will proceed with that next administrative step. And then once those hurdles are cleared, so to speak, then we would make arrangements to have the awnings delivered back to the properties in downtown Spencer.
Any other questions? All right, so that being the case, is this an item you want to keep on the main agenda or move to consent agenda?
Is it-
All right, Mr. Miller says consent.
You think the public would need to know that we sold some awnings?
Well, I think, you know, we
We
talked about
last
it,
meeting.
yeah, as part of the agenda about actually selling them for $1 a foot and
Okay.
announcing it.
I'll go with consent.
Yeah.
Of course, we are
Well, some
in an
people-
open meeting this evening, just
Right, right. And people hopefully will soon enough
Mhm.
know when they see them on the
I'm
on the
for
buildings.
full disclosure too, so I know what you're talking about.
we're gonna look wide open.
Yeah.
We could help them with the two other properties in any way. Would that be something that can be considered as a part of the side grant?
I mean, if they were to apply for it, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think they would be.
Which
be
other two?
eligible.
$1 a foot.
And the other two properties,
two
the other two properties I looked at, one is the old Ludwig carpet building, and then the other is the old fire station.
The old fire station was.
Also-
Right
Did they-
across from
Did they
Central.
request the fire station, the old fire station? One on the corner of Yakin, they requested?
Mhm.
First
Okay.
come, first served, like they said.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. We'll have our departmental reports and our town manager report. Anything we need to know tonight, Peter, on those?
no.
Okay. Then we'll have item 12, which are the EDC bylaws. We'll get confirmation on that. The next item, we have an application for the Planning and Zoning Board of Adjustment that we will consider. The next item is considering adopting resolutions for community development block grant. And so Kyle can walk us through this on Tuesday, but this will basically be us accepting that community development block grant and resolutions that are associated with it. So that allows us to get everything in order to begin that process. It has officially been awarded to us. We've gotten all the paperwork, and so this is one of the formalities of adopting this resolution to accept it.
So you're gonna have some discussion on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That's I'm gonna hold and let Kyle on Tuesday give us the background and overview on it. I think that's too important not to put on consent.
Yeah, that's a
agenda.
lot of money.
All right, consider terminating the due diligence period and finalizing the purchase of real property. This is for the parking lot, directly across from Town Hall. And I would recommend that we also keep this on the regular agenda. We'll be prepared to have Jay give an update on it. Jay has provided some recommendation to us, that, it looks like based on what we have found and the testing that has happened, that it looks like everything can move forward and that we can terminate due diligence and move towards actually closing and purchasing the property. So we'll talk about that. Next item is considering authorizing our audit contract for fiscal year ending June 2021. And again, I would suggest that we keep that as a regular agenda item. And Peter, you'll be prepared to give a update on that, correct?
Faith will be here as well.
Okay. And then item 16 is a budget amendment, which is attachment 11. And
And I'm happy to go over that if
why
you'd
don't you
like.
go ahead and go over that? Yeah.
So this is to officially record the amount we received from Rowan County, the 92,000 into our budget. And so it recognizes the revenue, and the expense, which previously did not exist.
But this is the money we got, we first came, this is not new money.
This is the CARES Act
Okay.
funding,
CARES
yeah,
Act,
not the American Rescue Act, which the update on that, we've seen the preliminary numbers. We've seen two different numbers. One is in the range of 650,000. The other is the range of 950,000 for Spencer.
75% of our budget is what they're saying now, I think.
That's the
Say that
cap.
again? Say that again, Jonathan?
So yeah, let me say that again because it's significant. So the
We're
most,
looking at this?
yeah. So what that is the 92,000 that we received from the CARES Act funding. That was our allocation from the county
Okay.
that we got, basically last calendar year.
Right.
Okay. There is a new round of funding with the most recent stimulus that has come out with the American Recovery Act. And that is, there's money that is being paid directly to municipalities that's not going through the counties. Now, Rowan County is getting about $27 million as part of that. But the direct allocation to the town of Spencer, we've seen the League of Municipalities estimated it at 650,000, but what I've actually seen from Washington and what was sent out is in the range of 950.
And actually, I think the league's estimate is in that ballpark as well. There was
Okay.
one other estimate
Okay.
that was lower, but the league's estimate is agreeing with what seemed to come from Washington.
So we can be planning for about $950,000 of that money. Half of it will come within 60 days. Is that right? What of final approval?
So the date was May, but although that date is for larger organizations that are getting it directly, ours will be flowing through the state, which I believe they have another 30 or 60 days after May to get it to us. And then that'd be for the first half. The second half would come 12 months after.
How do we, what are the guidelines for this many?
So there are a lot of guidelines. We're still working through that. One of the guiding things for it, though, is it can be used for water and sewer and stormwater infrastructure projects.
That's what I was talking about,
Mm.
stormwater.
So we definitely have some stormwater needs, and I mean, there are a lot of other needs that we have as well, but that should be something that we should definitely, I think, consider.
You heard that.
You know, Peter's staying up on it, I am too. We'll keep you apprised of the specific, logistics for how the money can be used. But what I would encourage you to start doing is just thinking, knowing that it definitely can be used for those type of infrastructure projects. And knowing we have some needs, be thinking about how we might be able to spend that over the course of 2 fiscal years.
Is there any way you could use it on 17th Street?
That's been discussed, that Peter and I both talked about that. I think we'll have to dig into it, but I think absolutely it could.
And we think that the time window to spend it may actually extend perhaps further. It's just that they're going to provide the funding over that time frame,
Right.
but there may be another year or two. I think it may be 2024 that's in there, but we've got kind of a high level of guidance so far. There's I think around that same May time frame that the money is starting to go out, the U.S. Treasury is to provide some further guidance that is going to be more helpful in narrowing down what we can and can't do with it.
So, good news. It was exciting when I sat in on the call and got that. We actually, I'm trying to think when it was. It was the mayor's roundtable, right? With the Rowan Chamber.
That was the first kind of.
And we had our federal liaisons in there, and they were talking about it, and they were naming off communities that got it, and they named China Grove and Salisbury and a few others, and they didn't name Spencer, and I started getting very, very worried. And it just happened that like they had literally just a few minutes before that meeting gotten the guidance from Washington. And so I pulled it up and looked through, and sure enough, Spencer's on there and $950,000. So my jaw about hit the
Very good.
floor.
Mhm.
I sat in on a meeting, and I think it was the League of Municipalities, where there was a guy from down east somewhere who was talking about how they had used some grant money and they ended up using it incorrectly, and he was, giving us everybody a word of caution to be sure that you have crossed your T's and dotted your I's.
Right.
Because they had to pay back something like $3 million.
Oh,
Mhm.
That was disallowed. And that was one of the questions I had about, who is going to audit the community block grant and the other grants that we receive. That was when I saw the thing about the audit contract.
my understanding is we have a grant administrator for that.
Right, okay. And
Yeah.
he'll actually do the audit, or they will do the audit?
Yeah, and that, let's ask Kyle that on Tuesday.
Something to consider, if we don't already have one, we should get a priority list, in terms of our stormwater problems. It's not just 17th Street.
Mhm.
That's the only problem we have.
Right.
We got a bunch of stormwater problems here.
And so this is something that I've tasked Peter with is when we go into budgeting, and that's working with our,
We could do that.
but that's working with our,
You're what?
our directors, within the organizations to come up with a capital improvement, plan and know what projects we have. So we can go ahead and start laying those out, knowing where their priorities are. So I think that's something that you're working with them on, or will be.
Everything you said we were talking about 45 minutes ago.
Okay.
That's why we was laughing.
All right, so this item, the budget amendment, you want to put it on consent agenda? That's consent. All right, and then we're to request by comments from mayor and board members, and then we have executive session if needed. And actually, hold on a minute.
Did you skip over? item,
Which one?
uh,
I don't think so.
What about Stan Goldman?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I said that, yeah, I said that we would keep that on the regular agenda and discuss that
Oh,
on
okay.
Tuesday.
I missed that.
So we do need to clean up, Peter, on the executive session 18 and 19 in adjournment,
Mm-hmm.
to take those, the first ones that are in italics, to take those off, I believe. Or,
Well, that's to
no,
that's
So
to
we got-
show the agenda for next week versus tonight's agenda.
gotcha, I'm sorry, thank you. Okay. So that's it. So I've got consent agenda, I've got approval of minutes, I've got the awning, surplus awning sale, and I've got the budget amendment 21-009. Sound right? Pat, am I right on that?
So,
Okay. All right. Is there a need for executive session tonight? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Biss, second by Mr. Morgan, all in favor? All right. We stand adjourned. It is 6:44.
I had